Welcome everybody to this week's show. I am your host Russell Gibson, and this is the You Can't Comp This NBA Trading Card Podcast. I hope life is treating you very well, and on this week's show we have got a whole bunch to get through, including and not limited to the NBA trade deadline. But for this week's show, we're actually going to start off with something that's a little bit different. But actually, I think this is very interesting. We're going to start talking about the Topps Chrome release, which is going to be a crossover between Cactus Jack and the NBA All-Star Weekend. The reason why I think this is actually worthwhile to talk about is because Topps are doing things differently within the hobby. They are absolutely trying to innovate, and they're trying to create releases that have genuine scarcity. And I think they've ticked a lot of boxes on this one. I think also for me, why I'm very interested in something like this, it's because, for lack of a better word, who is Cactus Jack? So I think that's probably also somewhere we can start here. Cactus Jack is Travis Scott, and that's where we need to start with this here. So Travis Scott, American rapper, basically he's created this record label, but it's more than just a record label. He's also doing merch, he's doing partnerships, Nike, McDonald's, Oakley. Now to add into that list too, now we've got Topps, Fanatics, and Topps Chrome. I think if we're talking about growing the hobby, where Topps wants to be in the next couple of years, what they're trying to achieve moving down the line, they're trying to grow the hobby using someone like Cactus Jack, who is famous outside of the hobby, trying to bring in some of those clicks from his circles back into the top circle. I think that's absolutely ingenious. To top it off from that though, and this is what we really need to start talking about now, is the All-Star Weekend, which is upon us. Pretty well won't be talking about All-Star Weekend today, just for the fact of there's just a lot going on at the moment with trade deadline happening, so we'll get to that next week. What we should probably start to do though is have a look at some of the cards that's coming through it, and then we'll read a little bit more through how it all breaks down and how all this is going to play out, because that's also something quite interesting here. So this is the card design of what you'll be seeing. Obviously, this is one of the hit cards. I like it because it's creative. Like for me, this is almost like a Panini insert where they're taking some risks. They're doing something that's a little bit crazy. One thing that's coming through to me with Topps is that they're not particularly looking for streamlined design. So what I mean by that is there's a lot going on in these pictures, and that does seem to be a theme in a lot of their cards. You got the rookie logo, you got the Cactus Jack logo, you got the All-Star logo, you've got the All-Star neon sign going on here. And I think what they're trying to do here is that's actually a sticker autograph. Then you got the Mavs logo, you got Cooper's name, and then you got the Topps Chrome logo, which seems like there's a fair bit of redundancy going on there. In saying all of that, I don't mind this terribly. I don't think it's a horrible design. I just think that this is probably not going to appeal to, every single collector. So for example, this, I think that's got a lot more sort of classic appeal, and I can see that, being received quite well. I think tapping into LeBron in a retro sense is also very clever, because while I think we all love LeBron, whether you love him or hate him, probably the LeBron of younger years is a lot more appealing at this point in time. Allen Iverson's going to be making an appearance in this. I would love to see Iverson autos in this too. I couldn't confirm whether that was going to be happening or not. And then, of course, here we've got some of the other big names that we've got here. So we've got Wemby coming in here. We've got Steph Curry coming in here. Very similar to, well, it's exactly the same design, isn't it, to the one we saw up here with the coupe. Back to Wemby here. Alrighty, so how this is all going to work, because I think this is really interesting. Dropping exclusively at the All-Star Weekend, Topps Chrome Cactus Jack Basketball brings Travis Scott's signature edge to the biggest stage in the game. This ultra-limited release fuses Topps Chrome shine with Cactus Jack attitude, spotlighting the stars, rookies, and moments that define All-Star greatness. Collectors can chase a 100-card base set loaded with elite talent. Now, I don't mind this at all, because I think sometimes one of the complaints we have about hobby products, or any other product for that matter, is that you have product that is just filled up with filler. Basically, they're just blowing it out. So on this, it's the complete opposite. Cooper Flag, Apple, Dylan Harper, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Giannis. Well, obviously, we've seen Iverson in there. We've got LeBron in there too. Every box delivers premium scarcity, with parallels starting at 50 and autographs numbered as low as 5. Look for the standout Sicko Cards insert, capturing the wildest, most unforgettable All-Star Game moments through a Cactus Jack lens, with its limited run and event-only availability. And we're going to talk more about this event-only availability in a second, because this is a big part of this set, and where I think this is going to drive the resale of this product absolutely through the roof. Is built for collectors who want something rare, loud, and unmistakably different. Fans must purchase a ticket to NBA Crossover, taking place at Los Angeles Convention Center, in order to participate in this release. After securing a ticket, fans will use the NBA Events app to reserve a specific day to pick up their box, making this a fully planned reservation-based experience tied directly to NBA All-Star Weekend festivities. Each fan is limited to one box per person for the entire event, and a reservation is required to make a purchase. Walk-ups will not be accepted. Once a reservation is secured, fans will receive a QR code to NBA Events app, which must be presented to staff at the Topps booth to unlock the opportunity to purchase their box. All purchases will be made on-site through Square, with all major credit cards accepted. Cash will not be accepted. So I think there's a lot to unpack there in terms of you need to purchase a ticket to NBA Crossover. You need to be in Los Angeles. You then need to make your reservation time. So there's a lot of hoops to jump through here. And this is going to eliminate a significant number of collectors. So, that's all Australians or Canadians or Chinese people, all of that. Obviously, with that excluding people who are going to be traveling to the event specifically for it. But I think that is a very limiting thing, but I also think that would increase the scarcity of it, because I find it difficult to believe if you've got parallels starting at 50, and I would say the wording for that, it means that that'll go up to, say, 125, 150, 199, whatever that's going to be. There's going to be a fair bit of this stuff printed. And so what's going to happen to the leftover box? Will they be put onto the Fanatics Live auction platform? Will they do some type of auction to get rid of it? Will they be given to VIPs, to staffers, something along those lines? So, but again, I still think these are going to end up on eBay being auctioned at, quite large prices. I also do like the way they've organized it so you don't have the situation of, people being a target where you've got fist fights and all that type of stuff. Do I think this is where the hobby is headed? Absolutely, yes. So more and more shops are moving away from delivering product in stores just because of the issues that people are having. When I say people, managers in shops, with staff being abused, staff being hassled by customers trying to, purchase stuff. In fact, it's even, one step further than that. It's happening for Pokemon, even in Australian retail. So JB Hi-Fi, I was just there recently. They've got very large signs up saying Pokemon is online only. You can still get NBA. You can get some Premier League cards, stuff like that. But, obviously they've had issues around that. And I've actually got no problems with it. I think some of the behavior with, people fighting in car parks and all that type of stuff, you just don't need that within the hobby. And, what's the ad here? Alrighty, really quick segue, and we don't need to talk a lot about this, but it fits into this same can of new releases coming out. We've got our first release of 25-26 Panini Unlicensed. I'm very much in two frames of mind of this. I miss Panini dearly. I really loved some of the releases that they did have, but it's amazing how quickly I have already crossed over to the Topps products and how I'm enjoying them so much more now. And I think that, it's quite interesting for me because I was publicly reluctant to be coming across to Topps, and my take was that I wanted Topps to, earn my love or prove to me that they're the right person to, to take my attention. And so I think they've done a pretty good job of that. I think some of the things they've done has been fantastic. The issue of the Topps black hole recently, I think they handled that really well. And so if you aren't caught up on that, I'll really quickly just touch on that. They didn't put a blue X-Fractor into a product. So to make up for that, what they're going to be doing now is you take your silver X-Fractor and you send it in and you get a replacement card for that. Probably this is actually a good time to thread this in too. There's been a couple of different reports. So for example, if you send in a Ja Morant, you might not get a Ja Morant back. And I think that's really troubling for collectors, because if you're spending $350, which is what the silver X-Fractors are now trading for on the Coopers, $350 plus, you're spending $350, you send in your Cooper and you get back a Cedric Coward rookie card. Yeah, it's a rookie card, but that's not the one you wanted, and you didn't want to spend $350 getting a silver Cooper for that. I really hope that report isn't true. Segueing back to Panini here, we got Kabooms again. Is anyone going to want unlicensed Kabooms? I don't really think so. This is where, though, I think it gets really interesting, and where Panini should put all their effort into, they should make them on-card autographs. They should make the autographs have fantastic artwork. So Trey Johnson, Cedric Coward, Luka Doncic, Ja Morant, VJ Edgecombe, and just hold our powder on VJ Edgecombe for 2 seconds. If Iverson's in it, Derrick Rose, that's fantastic. And so I think what they really need to do here is do something like what Tyson Beck does. Tyson Beck is unlicensed, but his products are highly coveted. The reason why they're highly coveted is because they're really, really high quality. So it's almost like Panini, what they need to do now here is take a leaf out of someone else's book, and that would be Tyson Beck's. Make sure all of their stuff is on-card autograph. Make sure all of their stuff is game worn or at least event worn. Like, you're not having napkin patches that are not associated to anything like that. I think that is the direction that they sort of need to go into, because I think if you're competing against a behemoth like Topps in the unlicensed space, you need to be delivering premium, like uber premium stuff that's innovative. And so, I kind of get the feeling that Panini won't do that just based on track record, but I'd love to see them do something that actually matters to the hobby as opposed to just pumping out a whole bunch of crap. We'll have to obviously wait and see where this goes to. And yeah, I think that's all we can really say for this one. Guys, I think we can move on. Let's go to our first sponsor for this week's show. Thank you so much to US Sports Cards Australia. Go to usportscardsaustralia.com.au for all of your trading card needs. Click on the 3 little noodles. There you'll find your sports breaks. Check out my Cards Australia, collectible protection, singles category, hobby boxes, sports memorabilia, and of course, Rascal's beloved water pistols. Now, of course, we want to talk about Check Out My Cards Australia. Roscoe is getting more and more traction within his page, and also a lot more submissions coming through. When you do your submission form here, on your submission form, all you need to write down is you can't comp this, and you will get all of your submissions done for 11 cents. I thought it was previously 9 cents, but 2 cents. We can let you get away with that on Roscoe. Roscoe will list all of your cards online for you. He will sell them, put the money back into your account. All the cards are stored safely within a safe, within a guarded safe. And thank you so much to US Sports Cards for your ongoing support. And welcome back, everybody. We're going to kick on today's show, and we're going to talk about the trade deadline. I'm not exactly too sure how I'm going to break all of this down, but I think we just try and do it one trade at a time, one comment at a time. It's going to be higgledy-piggledy, but it's going to be a whole bunch of fun. We put up a post on a whole bunch of sites, Sports Card Addicts Australia, NCM. We've got a few replies back, and of course, on our socials too. We'd love you to follow, subscribe, turn on that notification button. Of course, that helps us out so much. Cam Aitchison, when will GM stop answering Sam Presti's call? That is in reference to the trade where the Philadelphia 76ers sent off some draft equity for Jared McCain. So the initial response from Sam Presti is that he sold high on Jared McCain. And so in response to Cameron's comment here, when will they stop answering Sam Presti's calls? I think the answer is, Cam, they're not going to. They've got so much draft equity. And when you're trying to win a championship, you need a little bit of talent now, and you can give up future picks for it. Like, this seems like a win-win deal, because obviously Maury's happy with what he got back with the first round pick. But also too, you've got Sam Presti that's very happy because you've got someone coming into the fold that can contribute right away. He fits into them with a very cost-effective contract. And also, I'm going to go out to a limb here and say that they've checked up on his chemistry fit with the team, because we all know that chemistry is a really important part to the Thunder's success. He's started in today's game, today being the 8th of February in Australia. They're obviously very happy to have this guy come into the fold. I'm probably not convinced that he'll be playing fourth quarter minutes in the playoffs or in the finals, but I think he's absolutely going to be a rotation piece for them. So I think that goes down for an A for both teams. I don't really see anything there that's, too nefarious for either sides. Matthew Hull, I feel the most active team for a change was the Bulls. Hornets taking Kobe White was a big call. Makes LaMelo nervous or happy, I don't know. I still want Sabonis at the Bulls, or all the picks they've been given now to get Giannis last minute. Maybe we'll see. Alrighty, so talking about the Bulls made multiple trades at the trade deadline. I think it's going to be difficult to get through them all, but I will say this. The Bulls have emptied out their big man rotation, so I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for people on their roster to actually fill out those big minutes. We're going to go through the hobby value on that in a second. But the other thing they did too is they created an enormous amount of space, because they're going to have the most cap space in the league coming up to the offseason. So I think you need to take that in mind, whereas it's hard to sort of process. If you're a Bulls fan now, you might be really feeling, a bit not too happy with what's been going on, but at the same time too, I think you need to look long-term as to what the Bulls are doing here. So the Bulls have sent out Nikola Vucevic and a second-round pick. That's going to the Boston Celtics. The Bulls going to get back Anthony Simons, who's on an expiring contract, and a second-round pick. And so I think if you're the Celtics, you're really happy about this. You get rid of Anthony Simons. You've brought him in. You've checked him out. He's not going to be filling your bucket. I think that's a very favorable term at the moment. And so you get a big, which I think will fit in really nicely to the three-point shooting that the Celtics like to do. I think Vucevic is going to fit into the Celtics system seamlessly. Not the best defender, so I think the coaching staff are going to be pulling their hair out a little bit on this one. And it also saves the Celtics money. So that's another one in the short term where they actually took back less money compared to the Simons contract. So that takes them underneath the tax bracket. The other trade, which I think is the really interesting one to talk about, is Chicago is going to pick up Rob Dillingham and Leonard Miller. A whole bunch of draft equity is coming in there, and they've given up on Ayo and Julian Phillips. I think if you're looking at this again from the long term, Rob Dillingham has got the highest upside and also the highest ceiling here. My question is how does he fit into their roster in its entirety? I think for me, that's a really, really tricky one to sort of like process and get your head around per se, just for the fact that they're very, very guard heavy at the moment. So I think what might be happening in Chicago the next 12 months or 6 months, it's basically just going to be like a tryout for next season. I've really got a lot of hope still left in Dillingham, and it's a bit of a weird one for me why the Wolves gave up on that so quickly. Ayo Dosunmu is going to go into their roster, 3-and-D, can shoot the ball, can defend, which is what they need, a little bit more size than what Dillingham's giving them. So I think that's an interesting one. Mike Conley was also dealt away from the Wolves in the last couple of months. Reportedly, he's been waived. He'll go back to the Wolves to help them out there. Another Mike Conley deal here, and this is what we want to talk about in terms of card ladder coming up in 2 seconds. Mike Conley goes to Charlotte. He's going to be waived. Kobe White stays. Now, I think what we need to talk about right now is Kobe White, because this is the first hobby intersection that we have to talk about here. We've been talking about pop count the last couple of weeks, and I think what we need to really acknowledge here, see if I can bring this into the middle of the screen. Yep, that's beautiful. Kobe White has got a population on this card of 1,702. It's currently trading at $32. This is the classic thing where there is just too many cards for the demand on this kid. Also, keeping in mind, this was a COVID baby rookie, and so people were sending this off to PSA, left, right, and center. If you look at the all-time sales data on this guy, there was some insane sales on him. He was up to $1,084 at his absolute peak, which, now that you look back at it, this is the correct trading price for this guy. If you are a Kobe White fan, I think you try and look for a color match. You can go for the red. You can go for something even low numbered, just for the fact that you're going to be picking him up for a little bit cheaper. I think probably my issue for him moving forward for hobby value is now he's going to be behind LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and then Con Knuppel, which is also currently an absolute hobby darling at the moment. And so I think for me, with the population on this guy, this is an absolute stay away for me. So yeah, just stay away from anything that's got to do with Kobe White. Chicago Bulls roster, this is what we need to talk about here, because this is what I'm actually really interested in. So look at who's going to be playing their center minutes. It's going to be Nick Richards. It's going to be Lachlan Olbrich, which is, interesting, but I don't think he's going to be getting an insane amount of minutes. The two people that I'm really got my eye on out of this rotation here, obviously Bazilis is going to be playing an absolute stack of minutes. I think Josh Giddey is going to be playing more small forward, maybe even some power forward minutes. Pat Williams, I think, I'm probably a broken record on this guy, but I'm actually still pretty high on this guy. I've still got hope for him. I really hope he takes some opportunity on this one here. But Jalen Smith for me, I really think we have to look at this guy in terms of low-end hobby action, that you can pick this guy up for cheap. He's going to be coming in and he's going to be getting some minutes, meaningful minutes on a team. And I think the other really weird thing about the Chicago Bulls too is if we're, looking at things over the, the long term, the last couple of years, I wouldn't say that they've overperformed, but they've never really underperformed either. So I think, this team is still going to be on national TV. It's still going to be in the highlights. All right, so Jalen Smith, flawless autograph here, number to 25, PSA 9. There's nothing wrong with PSA 9s in flawless cards, guys. Thicker cards are so much harder to grade. Best offer sold on that, $80. That is an absolute win in this current market and the team that he's on. 1/1 rookie jersey patch autograph, number to 99, $35. Again, very good. I would probably put the flawless prime autograph and prime patch on that up the chain a little bit more. And then we've got another sale of a 1/1. Is that the same numbering on that card? No, it's a different one. That's sold for $16. So again, that is, really, really good. I think if you're looking for a low-end flyer who's going to a team that's in a very, very large market, being Chicago Bulls, Los Angeles Lakers, you do have to factor that into hobby. Yes. Would I invest my entire life into Jalen Smith? Absolutely not. I won't be doing that. The final Bulls trade, we'll just go through really quickly here. The Bulls are going to get Yabusele and some cash, sending out Dalen Terry. I think Dalen Terry for New York is going to be absolutely fantastic. Do I think either of these two guys move the hobby needles? Absolutely no, I don't think that whatsoever. Moving on to our next post. This was done on NCM. I think it's the Mighty Joe Fu, which is like tipping in here. Chicago trading Kobe White and Vooch for extra guards and no bigs is a very bold move. What are they thinking? I think they're just thinking about trying out guards and clearing out cap space. Yuki back on the court makes him happy. That's awesome, man. If you've got any Yuki cards, guys, put them up online, tag us in, we'll share them to social media for you guys. No problems at all. Looking at the You Can't Comp This Facebook page, we got here Timothy Price. I'm a biased supporter of Boston, but Celtics getting Vucevic and lowering their tax apron is a massive win. With Tatum possibly on the horizon, they're now primed for a deep playoff run. I'm not too sure they're primed for a playoff run this year, but they have absolutely managed their finances in a masterful way, and I think that will give ownership more potential to invest into their team maybe next year. I think this year is a little bit of a write-off, man, but yeah, wish Celtics fans all the best on that. Mark Smith, do you think a player's value in the hobby is better if they stay loyal to one team, even if that's a small market, or force trades and play for numerous bigger market teams? For example, if Giannis remains with the Bucks versus players like Harden and Durant. Look, I think this is a really difficult question to answer. However, I'll do my best to do it. I think players like Steph Curry, who've been with one team, Dirk Nowitzki, Kobe Bryant, I'll say Michael Jordan, even though he did play for two teams. I think it does matter a lot, but I think what more matters is the success that they have with that one singular team versus someone being loyal to it. So, for example, I think Harden moving around teams, doesn't really mean that much because he hasn't been successful with teams. I think either you're going to like Harden for what he is or you're not. I think that the reason why Harden isn't a hobby darling is more to do with his playing and his lack of success versus the teams that he's played on. Now, Durant's is a really different one altogether because he has moved around, but he's had success. And I think Durant's going to move into that space where he's actually undervalued for what he is. What people need to realize on that one is that moving around probably isn't as detrimental as what we think. I think there's always going to be purists out there that want people to stay with one team. But overall, yeah, not a massive deal here. Oyvind, looks like the Hawks nailed it with Landale. I like what the Clippers did, got a bit younger and moved on from Harden. So Jock Landale was traded and then reported immediately to the Hawks. He drove himself in his car 5 hours to make sure he got to the game. He went out and dropped 26 points, 11 rebounds, and 4 blocks in an immediate revenge game. So he was traded away from the Jazz and then played them the very same night. I think that's really fantastic. I think this is, again, fantastic for the Hawks because after getting rid of Trae Young, I think they've got a little bit of roster instability there, but I think still there's some really good opportunities here for people on the roster. Jalen Johnson is still not on card ladder. Let's find him in sales history because this is the one I think we should be looking at. Jalen Johnson, silver raw rookie, selling for $27. That's not through the roof, but at the same time, it's not dirt cheap either. Jalen Johnson, archetype auto, 41 out of 49. That's a card from Recon, which in my mind is quite a low-end card and also quality of product. That's sold for $50 US. I would probably rather take 2 raw silvers at 27 a piece in that Recon auto, but I think that says a lot about the market and where we're at. Jalen Johnson, I still think is a really good buy at the moment, despite him surging quite a bit. I think in the next 3 years, we're going to see some really good things from Jalen Johnson. Back to our comments online here. Tolga, angry emoji times 5. Chicago. Yeah, I get it. If you're a Bulls fan, you're not very happy right now. But at the same time, man, I think we need to come back in 12 months and then talk about this just a little bit more. Let's have a really quick look on our Instagram page. I don't think we had anything there. We did not. I think what we should do now is go to our second commercial break and then we can come back and we will talk more NBA trades. Thank you to Neon Trading Cards for your ongoing love and support. Please go to neontradingcards.com. You can find all of your breaking sealed product needs. Also, don't forget Neon Trading Cards, one of the Topps Fanatics direct partners. They are also one of the 3 regulated breakers in Australia on to Whatnot. That is huge in that breaking space. Whatnot breaks have been absolutely going crazy for the boys, and they have been breaking they've been breaking midnight products absolutely like crazy. Some of the hits that we have got here include the Cooper flag numbered to 50, the SGA numbered to 12. I don't mind the design on that at all. We've got the Larry Legend on-card autograph numbered to 20. We've got the Dylan Harper to 35 there. We've got an SGA Midnight Oil Marks redemption, a Desmond Bain 1-of-1 sticker. They absolutely dropped the ball on that one. That should have been an on-card autograph. Come on, Topps. Get rid of sticker autographs on 1-of-1. There's no place in the hobby for that. Number to 35, but on-card autograph. This makes no sense at all, but that's totally fine. Cedric Coward. That's actually quite a nice looking card. And so this is the second time I've mentioned Tyson Beck in today's show, but that's really tapping into that sort of creative artwork that you get from someone like Tyson. It's not a paid segment for Tyson, but that's a nice little shout out. Thanks so much to Neon Trading Cards for your ongoing love and support. Alrighty guys, welcome back. Thanks so much for tuning in. We're going to continue on here with our NBA trade deadline extravaganza. I think that's the only way that we can talk about this. Again, continuing on in our ad hoc fashion, we're going to talk about next the Washington Wizards trade that landed them Anthony Davis, Jaden Hardy, D'Angelo Russell, Dante Exum, Charlotte receiving Malachi Branham, and Dallas getting Chris Middleton, AJ Johnson, Tyus Jones, Marvin Bagley, 22nd first-round pick via Oklahoma, a 2030 first-round pick via Golden State, and 3 future seconds from the Wizards. And so I think if you're looking at this from Dallas's perspective, that 2026 pick from Oklahoma is not going to be great. It's probably going to be 30th or 29th at the absolute worst case scenario, I would suggest. The juicy pick out of all this is the 2030 pick via Golden State. I think if you are a gambling person, and I'm assuming this is what Dallas is doing here, they're looking at what their team is going to look like in a couple of years. There's no point building around an injured Anthony Davis, paying him up to $60 million, or even under the new collecting bargaining agreement, it might be 70 or 75, which is an insane thing to say, but that's also the reality that we're currently living in. You know, AJ Johnson is not the most fantastic prospect that you're getting back, but I think that pick is worth gambling on, and also just redirecting your team around Cooper. I think Cooper's done more than enough to warrant him getting the keys to the franchise. So I've got no problems with this at all. From the Washington Wizards perspective, for me, I'm going to give them an A+ on this, because basically what they've done is they've turned a whole bunch of low-end talent into all-stars. Or let's just be generous here and call them all-stars past their prime. But I think if you're a Wizards team that really lacks direction, and also too, you are like a team that's just sort of always floating in the middle. They never really seem to nail their draft picks. They have a lot of trouble with their free agency signings. I think getting something that's a sure thing, even if you know what they are, you know Anthony Davis is only going to play half of a season. You know that Trae Young is not the most fantastic defender, but on the nights that you've got these two guys on the court, like that's a really good product. And I think it's going to cause some teams trouble on some nights. It's going to get people tuning in to make sure that they are watching the team, whether it's going to be on cable, whether it's going to be, in the stadium. I think, this is a relatively fun team and I've got no problem. The reason I've got no problem with this is because what they paid for it. So let's go through this. At Clutch Sports on Twitter, turned Beal's $250 million contract into Chris Paul, flipped Chris Paul for Jordan Poole for CJ McCollum, Kyle Kuzma for Chris Middleton, McCollum to get Trae Young, and Middleton to get Anthony Davis. You would do that every single day of the week. In addition to that, Keyshawn George was added Alex Sarr, who's becoming a very good pro. And I think the Sarr addition to that team makes a lot more sense now because he's never going to be a number one option, but he's a very good third or maybe fourth option, which he will be around Anthony Davis and Trae Young. So I'm totally fine with that. Now, Trey Johnson is the guy that I want to talk about. And I've been meaning to talk about this guy for multiple weeks, but I just haven't been able to sort of weave that in. So let's talk about this. Trey Johnson, one of the best shooters in the league, and I think more people need to be talking about this guy. The reason they're not talking about this guy is because he's on an absolutely terrible team. I was going to say dog ship, but let's not go down that route. Let's try and keep this PG and friendly. 2024 Panini Prism Draft Pick Sensational Signatures Trey Johnson Mojo, $210. I am very wary of these prices, but here we go. 25-26 Topps Chrome Trey Johnson Pulsar Rookie SP, $5.50. I gotta tell you, who on earth is paying $210 for a Prism Draft Picks card? That is insane. All right, I'm going to give that an F-. I love this kid. I think he's fantastic, but do not spend $200 on a Draft Picks card. You will get absolutely flushed. Alrighty, Trey Johnson, Topps Chrome X Factor, $375. I think this guy's a buy. I really think this guy's a buy. These cards are selling for $1 and $2 each. Rookie Silver Refractor, $5. The range on this kid is Steph Curry, Klay Thompson-esque. And again, when you've got people who are going to draw a lot of gravity to the court, a la Anthony Davis and also Trae Young. And actually, the funny thing about Trae is that he's a ball hog guy, but actually he gets dimes. It's not like the kid never passes. I think there's a lot of action to be had on this guy. I'm going to put this actually down as a prospecting chance here because what I think you will be seeing out of this kid is that you've got a lot of upside. And I also think too, the market has not reacted to him at all. Look, you might say this is a deep cut. I am absolutely into this guy in a very, very big way. Right. Trey Johnson, range is absolutely limitless. Look at these shots. Literally coming in from the logo here. Again, all the way back, nearly at half court there. This one's off the dribble that we've got coming in here. So he's not just a catch and shoot guy. He can catch and shoot, but he's also got a little bit of handles there. I'm insanely high on this kid. I think we need to keep watching him. Yeah, that's absolutely a takeaway from all of this. All right, moving on down the list. The Warriors have finally moved on Jonathan Kuminga. I feel like this for me is just a relief. This has been simmering in the background for such a long period of time. And I'm kind of glad that it's over. Like, it's really been, like, just too much. For someone who's barely in the rotation, whose cards are selling for $2.44 as a rookie card, we have spoken about Jonathan Kuminga too much. Again, we've already spoken about the Hawks today with Jalen Johnson and the hobby opportunity that's going to be going on there. Look, I like this a lot, okay? I'm not going to lie to you. I don't think the fit is perfect with Kuminga and also Jalen Johnson. I think it's going to put a bit of like rotational maybe pressure on these two guys, but maybe they can, work it out and just, have something there that's going to work really well. I think shooting is going to be an issue for those two if they're both on the floor at the forward positions, but let's give it some time on this. I really hope he turns up to the Hawks with a great attitude, gives it his best go, and then basically, just tries to make something happen, because I would hate to see him go to that team and then there's just nothing going on, right? I think that would be a terrible, terrible outcome. Kristaps Porzingis is being traded to the Warriors. I think on paper, this fits very, very well. I think also, too, it creates a lot more definition within their rotation. So what I mean by that is, it means Draymond doesn't have to play center anymore. It means Porzingis is always going to be playing the 5. I think it gives them Horford coming off the bench. Maybe Porzingis comes off the bench. I'm not exactly too sure on how that's going to play out. The other thing you have to mention about Porzingis is that he is chronically injured now, and we won't be expecting him to be playing, more than 60 or 70 games. So we do need to keep that in mind. But in saying that, you've got a good enough big rotation to sort of hold this through. This is somebody that I've been very high on for a long period of time, and I think it's at the point now where he's never going to recover. This is the value that he's at. He's currently trading at $56 on his silver PSA 10. The population on this is absolutely fantastic. It's 164. All-time high traded at about $1,600. Yeah, look, I love this guy. I think he was one of the original unicorns. He means a lot to the league. He's, fantastic on so many different facets. However, his days of being the number one option are absolutely gone. Is this the best possible outcome for him? Absolutely, this is the best possible outcome, but I still don't think the needle is going to be moving all that much. So yeah, nothing huge there on the hobby standpoint. However, the on-court, that's just such a big win. I also kind of feel like the Buddy Hield thing's a little bit funny, because it just seems like they wanted to get rid of him and just move off altogether. Pacers have acquired Ivica Zubac and Kobe Brown. They've given up Benedict Mathurin and Isaiah Jackson, and 3 picks are going to LA. 26 first-round pick from the Pacers, a 29 first-round from the Pacers, and a 28 second-round pick. I personally think this is an overpay to get Zubac. However, I will say this. The Indiana Pacers were in the playoffs, in the finals, less than 12 months ago. So maybe in their mind, they're like, Halliburton's coming back. We need to retool our rosters with guys who can win right away. The only thing I'm a little bit interested on is that the way that they're coached in Indiana, they play a very fast up and down game. They also like their bigs to stretch the floor. So I'm not entirely sure how that Zubac fits into that. And will that actually diminish his effectiveness, or will he just allow their guards to run out because he's going to be doing all the dirty work inside? It could be sort of either way, or actually it could be both too, but I'm just really curious on that. Because, for example, Isaiah Jackson, yes, he's probably not strong enough and big enough to play the 5, but when he did play 5 minutes, his defensive rotations were fantastic, and his stretch shooting really made them hard to defend. And so, that's that's a little bit of an interesting one for me. I really liked Isaiah Jackson as a rotation piece for the Pacers. Benedict Mathurin's an interesting one. He can go off for, big points very, very quickly, and he's had 40 points in the playoffs already before. I think the catch with this guy, and probably where he has become expendable, is that he's very inconsistent, and so you can't rely on him for 20 points a night. He's very much a 5 points or 25 points type of guy. I think for the Clippers, picking up cheap talent who's young and also future picks, they can't say no to this trade. I really think that was a trade that they couldn't pass up on this one here. I'm not going to talk about the Suns trade. There's really nothing to talk about there. We've already done the Hornets trade. Jose Alvarado going to the Knicks. I think he is going to become a fan favorite almost instantly. And I also think this too is going to be a little bit of a hobby needle mover, because we're talking about big markets. Chicago, Los Angeles, New York also fits into the big markets here. Let's see what we've got going on with Jose Alvarado with sales. $2 for a update card from Chronicles, $9.50 for a blue shimmer autograph. This stuff is cheap. This stuff is really cheap. Penman autograph, PSA 10, auto 10, sold for $40. I mean, that barely covers your cost of grading. Penmanship autograph, selling raw for $5.49. Look, I don't think that you're ever going to make $1 million off this guy. Do I think he's got some hobby legs? Yes, I do. I think he's going to become almost like a cult figure for that team. And I have called out guys to be cult figures before and been very wrong, but I think someone like Jose, who plays very, very hard, does that sneaky thing where he sits behind the baseline and runs up on people. I think the Knicks fans will actually quite enjoy that. That's kind of an interesting little pickup there. Let's go to our third and final advertisement for this week. It is going to be the Hobby Hangout. Thank you so much to the Hobby Hangout. Go to tickets.oztix.com.au. There you will find your tickets for the Hobby Hangout. Pre-release is currently selling at $19.90. General admission for under 12s is free, but you have to be accompanied by an adult. Doors at 10:30 a.m., finishes at 5:30. It will be in Melbourne, Royal Exhibition Building, Sunday the 26th of April, 2026. So it's going to come up on us very, very soon. 400 plus tables, international and national vendors, sports cards, NBA, NFL, MLB, AFL, NRL, soccer, and more. Pokemon. Of course, there's going to be Pokemon there. Yu-Gi-Oh!, One Piece, MTG, entertainment cards, live breaks, dedicated trading zones. This was very, very well received in other shows. Free play areas. Bring along your decks so you can play with other people. So if you're a Pokemon player, One Piece, Yu-Gi-Oh!, bring your stuff along, guys. Play with other fanatics while you're there at the show. Expert panels, speakers, and international guests. Thank you so much to Hobby Hangout for your ongoing support. And we're back, and we're going to keep talking about the NBA trade deadline and what's been going on around the league. It has been a very, very busy NBA trade deadline. With the Warriors picking up Kristaps Porzingis, they needed to free up some minutes in their big man rotation. The Raptors needed a big man, so again, this is a win-win trade. Golden State receives a Lakers 2026 second-round pick. Not a huge amount of value on that. The real value add for the Warriors here was saving them some money on their salary. Trace Jackson-Davis goes out. He is a very serviceable big. He's not overly talented, but he's an NBA caliber player. He's going to fit into the Raptors just fine. The Raptors have fully embraced their positionless basketball this year, and they're a fun team to watch, by the way, guys. If you haven't watched much Raptors this year, absolutely check them out. Scotty Barnes has been having a great year. Brandon Ingram's been playing really well. I think they do need a little bit more rebounding, though, and maybe even just a big body underneath to give away some fouls. I think that's totally fine. The Lakers traded away Gabe Vincent. In return, they got Luke Kennard. Basically, what you're giving away here is some defense, but you're getting back a whole lot of shooting. Luke Kennard is one of the best shooters in the league. Luke Kennard was also in the league at a time. I'm going to guess that he's on card ladder, on their actual ladder. Yeah. 2017, there was actually some hobby love going into this guy. Population on this is just 88. All right, here we go. Is this a buy at the moment? Currently trading at $28, going to the Lakers. How much bump will this guy get? I think this is going to be really tricky to buy and flip and make money off it. The only thing I would say about Luke Kennard is that he's going to be going to the Lakers. They will be in at least the first round of the playoffs, probably first round and out. I think this is one, if you got Luke Kennard in your PC and you want to move them on, this is more of a timing sale as opposed to a buy and a sell at the moment. So check out your rubbish boxes. If you've got any Luke Kennard in there, get them out, start sorting them, comp them up, put them up for maybe 5 or 10% less, move them on quickly, as you're going to see a little bit of buzz going on with some Lakers fans trying to pick up some Luke Kennard. I think that's probably the play right now for this guy. There's not too much more happening there. Chris Paul to the Raptors in a 3-team deal. Toronto gets Chris Paul, Brooklyn gets Ochai Agbaji, and then the Clippers get the rights to Vanja Marinkov. I hope I've pronounced that properly. I'm pretty sure that I didn't. Chris Paul has been waived. He will not be reporting to Toronto. I don't know who's going to pick up Chris Paul at this point. I think that's a really tricky one. I'm really surprised about the Agbaji one, though. I think he's an NBA defender. Would I call him an elite defender? Probably not, but I think to give him up for what? I suppose really it's an addition, though, isn't it? The Nets have picked him up for basically nothing and also got a pick back too. So basically they've taken on salary, haven't they, really there? I think the other really interesting one we have to tie into this now is Cam Thomas, because Cam Thomas was let go. And the plus minus numbers with Cam Thomas on the court is really, really bad. Basically, I'm not 100%, I've actually bookmarked this, but basically the on-off numbers with his defensive rating is shocking, to the point that you can't play winning basketball with that. That could be a little bit of him, who he is. I think that is absolutely part of who Cam Thomas is, but also too, he was playing for a contract trying to get his numbers. So, getting rid of Cam Thomas, bringing in a Barjay, you actually might see the Nets win a few more games just because of their increased defensive efficiency around that one there. Jock Landale, we've already spoken about this here, goes to the Hawks. Utah gets Lonzo Ball, 2 future seconds. There's a report out that Lonzo Ball's going to be waived on that. Charlotte gets Xavier Tillman and cash. Boston gets a second-round pick. Again, a cash-saving move for that. Not a lot to talk about on that one there. I'm not even going to talk about the Josh Minert trade there. All right, we're getting down to the deep stuff. Oh, I missed one. I absolutely missed one. James Harden goes to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Okay, this is actually worth talking about. James Harden, again on his championship merry-go-round, trying to find a team that will give him a championship. I think what he really should have said was, he's on a partially guaranteed deal for next year. The Clippers didn't want to pay him the money, so essentially he's demanded a trade. I really hate the spin that sometimes comes in on, some of this stuff. Like, just tell us the truth. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't get your bag. You wanted to get paid. I'm demanding a trade. I think that he is lucky in the sense that he found a team that is actually contending and they're willing to give up a young asset to get him. And in that sense, I think it's a win-win. So basically, the Clippers are getting back Darius Garland and a future second-round pick. I reached out to a Cleveland fan, so shout out to Ryan from GemRate. He was actually happy to see Darius Garland go just because of the lack of size in the backcourt and the defensive problems that actually creates. And also, too, because of the injury history that Garland has got. He's not that robust of a player. I don't particularly think Harden is that robust either. But in saying that, maybe some of the stuff he set out was more to do with him not getting what he wanted. So when you've got a motivated Harden in the first 2 years of the deal, actually you're onto a really good thing. I'm not too sure how much this moves the needle for the Cavs. Do they win a championship with Harden? Look, I think it makes them a lot deadlier, but I think the thing that you cannot look past is Harden's previous performances in the playoff. He has never been an outstanding playoff performer, and so I'm a little bit reluctant to talk about this in terms of like a true win for anybody that has invested heavily into Cleveland in terms of their gambling odds for the championship. So I think you'd be happy about it, but I don't think it moves the needle that much. Let's talk some hobby value here. James Harden, 2009 Topps Chrome base, which was numbered to 999. Can you imagine if base cards were now numbered to 999? It's outrageous. PSA 10 is population of just 64. It's currently trading at 1,800. I actually have no problem with the value of this card. I think that the card value is representative of somebody that's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And if he's not first ballot, he will absolutely get in on his second ballot. I think the real question is, are you buying, holding, or selling this? And for me, that's a really difficult one to answer because at 1,800, I probably think you could buy something else that's pretty juicy. You could get half of a Jordan autograph. You could get a LeBron autograph. You could probably get a Kobe patch autograph, maybe on the lower end for that. And so would I be thinking about that? Maybe, but at the same time too, the pop on this stuff is very, very low. He might experience a bit more driving forces moving forward. We can't not talk about this card though. The refractor number to 500. Pop on this is just 24. That is trading at 2,900. For me, that's really interesting because the intersection between these two cards, why isn't the number to 500 a lot more expensive than this? So actually, you might argue that this one's a little bit undervalued in proportion to the other one. Number to 999. Again, it's just the question is, do you want to put this much money into somebody who has some hobby popularity but is absolutely not a hobby darling? I think that's the one there. So for me, this is a little bit of a stay away, but I definitely wouldn't, poo-poo anybody that wants to buy onto this guy. Do we talk about Darius Garland's hobby value? I think we do. Is Garland on the ladder? He is fantastic. Thank you, Card Ladder. Alrighty, Darius Garland, silver PSA 10. Oof, population on this is 1,652. Does it go up from his $50 mark going to Los Angeles? Absolutely not. I don't think this is even anything near something that you would be hoping to achieve in terms of someone being traded to a location to improvement. Are they going to win the championship this year? I mean, geez, I think they're such a dark horse. It's hard to find that much black paint. Look, I think Kawhi Leonard is one of my favorite players of all time, but there's just a lot of roster, I think, instability now with Zubac going, Garland coming in. I think that's too many changes. I'm going to watch some Clippers, though. I really want to see how this Garland-Kawhi Leonard partnership turns out. I think that could be really nice. And I also think, too, maybe the chemistry is going to be a little bit higher for the Clippers, because I think there was some weird stuff going on with Harden and Kawhi Leonard, too. You can't really, look past that. We're going to just do one last story for today's show, and then we're going to sign off. So thank you, everybody who has tuned into this week. This is a story from Card Hub Sports Card Exchange Australia on Facebook. Cowan JM. G'day team, just curious, the other week I sent 2 shipments to the US and they cleared customs fine. Cardstock. I then sold a couple more on eBay and printed the label from Ozpost. They're being rejected at customs this week. Has something changed between then and now? So the answer is no, nothing's actually changed in that short period of time, but probably what's happened to you, you've been caught up in a customs examination. They can't examine every single card that goes through. And so unfortunately, when you don't complete your forms properly, it either triggers it to be just ushered through and, you're one of the lucky ones, or it gets triggered for somebody to actually pick it up and look at it. Most likely what's happened to you is you haven't filled in the paperwork properly, and then it's been returned to sender, which it's a really crappy system what they've done on that. But at the same time too, there is actually a process that's been set up for this. And I think that the communication around this hasn't been fantastic. And this is where you need someone who is supporting you and also trying to help you out when you are at your post office. So I'm blessed. When I go to my local post office, I actually feel like my service attendant tries to get me the best price on postage, will teach me how to save some money on what to buy and all that type of stuff. And so, for example, too, when a new process is implemented, which is, very poorly advertised, and I think, if we're being genuine about what's happened here, it was ushered in a very quick sense because of the way that Trump implemented the change. So there wasn't a lot of time to talk about it. So I'll give them, some time on that. But there's also something to be said about you getting good customer service at your Ozpost. If you're not getting that, what you might not know is there is actually a process set up for this. You log into your Zonos account. You then it literally tells you what to do step by step. And I'm not saying it's an idiot's guide because, it's not that sort of straightforward. However, once you've done it once or twice, what you'll find is it's actually all very intuitive in that you just put in your values. It will create how much tax or tariff that you need to pay, and then it will go through. What you need to understand when you're shipping is that anything that goes through in an automated fashion is infinitely better when someone picks it up. And so I see this in my day-to-day job so much. Like if you make an error or someone makes an error along the way and it triggers human intervention, it just really slows everything down. Anything that can be done automatically or by a computer is the way to go. So unfortunately, it's more red tape for you to jump through but post, you won't have these issues where your cards are being returned to sender, and then you have an unknown wait period, and then the person you're selling the card to is left in limbo and their cash is being held. It's just a bad outcome all around. So Cowan, I'm very sorry that this has happened to you. However, there is some light in the end of the tunnel on that one there. So guys, on that note, I would just like to say again, thank you everybody who's tuned in today. I am Russell Gibson. This has been the You Can't Comp This NBA Trading Card Podcast, and we will catch you next week. Goodbye for now.